In the beginning, before books, before schools, before even the idea of a classroom, there was learning. A child crouched beside a fire, watching an elder strike two stones together until a spark leapt into life. A young hunter listened to the rhythm of the wind, learning which way the herd would move. A mother showed her daughter which berries were safe and which would bring death. This was education in its earliest form, learning carved into the very heartbeat of survival. The Stone Age was the dawn of humanity's long pursuit of knowledge. Stretching back more than 2.5 million years, it was an age defined not by writing or invention, but by discovery. Stone tools, fire, shelter, art, and language. These were the great subjects of an unwritten curriculum. And though there were no classrooms, humanity's first lessons shaped the mind of our species forever. Imagine a world where the earth itself was the teacher, where every sound, every scent, every shadow carried a message. Children learned not from textbooks, but from the rustle of leaves and the whisper of rivers. They watched their elders carefully, memorizing the way hands shaped flint, how feet left light prints in mud, how patience brought success in the hunt. To fail to learn was to risk hunger or death, but to master a skill, that was to claim a place in the story of the tribe. In those ancient communities, the elders were the keepers of knowledge. Their memories stretched back beyond the lifetime of any one person, holding maps of migration routes, stories of floods, and warnings of famine. Around the firelight, they spoke, and the children listened, eyes wide and silent. Through stories, they learned the laws of their world, when to move, what to respect, what to fear. And in those flickering moments, the first teachers passed on the wisdom of generations. Education in the Stone Age was not a separate part of life. It was life. Every day was a lesson in endurance, cooperation, and awareness. Boys and girls learned together at first, running through forests and playing with small stones or sticks. Their games were not just for fun. They were the first exercises in coordination, focus, and strength. As they grew older, the paths of learning began to divide. Some learned to stalk deer through tall grass, reading the language of footprints and broken twigs. Others learned to weave fibers into baskets, to grind seeds into meal, to tend to the wounded and the young. But all shared the same truth. Knowledge meant survival, and survival meant belonging. There were no lessons in writing or arithmetic. Instead, they studied the stars, memorizing constellations that guided migrations and seasons. They learned to listen to the cries of birds, the rustle of predators, the distant roll of thunder that warned of storms. They studied the earth beneath their feet, reading its moods and patterns. This was their science, their mathematics, their philosophy. It was an education rooted in observation and wonder. And then there was art. Deep in caves, humans painted their world with ochre and charcoal. Bison, horses, mammoths, creatures larger than life, yet so familiar to their daily struggle. These paintings were not idle decoration. They were lessons, memories, rituals. Through them, knowledge was preserved. Perhaps an elder pointed to the painted walls, teaching a child about the way animals moved, how they gathered, how they fell. In those dark, echoing chambers, the first classrooms were born, where firelight flickered across the walls of human imagination. Language itself was the Stone Age's greatest invention. Before words, ideas died with those who carried them. But with speech, one mind could reach another. Stories could travel. Warnings could be shared. Songs could teach rhythm and memory. Through language, humanity found a way to preserve knowledge beyond one lifetime. And once people could tell stories, they could pass down everything they had learned, their failures, their triumphs, their dreams. Community was the foundation of Stone Age education. Children learned not only how to survive, but how to live together. They learned generosity by sharing food, patience by waiting their turn, courage by facing danger alongside others. They learned that no one could live alone for long. The tribe's strength was in its unity, and education was the glue that held it together. Every member, from the smallest child to the oldest elder, had something to teach and something to learn. As time moved forward, humans began to settle. They planted seeds, tamed animals, built homes that stood for years instead of days. The lessons changed too. Now, there were new things to learn: how to farm, how to craft pottery, how to trade. The pace of life slowed, and with it came reflection. The oral lessons of the past became traditions, stories told not just for survival, but for meaning. From this steady rhythm of learning and teaching, the idea of school slowly began to form. Yet, even as civilization grew, the essence of Stone Age learning remained. We still learn best by doing, by touching, seeing, listening, and trying. A child learning to ride a bicycle is not so different from one learning to throw a spear. The thrill of discovery, the sting of failure, the joy of mastery. These are ancient emotions. They are echoes of a time when learning was not measured in grades, but in heartbeats and breath. When we sit in modern classrooms, surrounded by technology, we often forget how deep our roots of learning go. Every lesson, every question, every spark of curiosity is part of a chain that stretches back millions of years. To the first time a child asked why. To the first time someone shared an answer. Education began when humans looked at the world and decided to understand it. So, what was schooling like in the Stone Age? It was not a place or a schedule. It was a way of living, an endless exchange between people and their world. It was learning by firelight, by starlight, by the rhythm of footsteps through grass. It was discovery written not on pages, but in the memories of those who survived to tell the tale. And though the Stone Age has long passed, its lessons remain with us. The instinct to teach, the hunger to know, the belief that knowledge can shape our destiny. These are the gifts of our ancestors, carried silently through time. Every time we ask, how? Every time we wonder, why? We honor them. Because long before the first school bell ever rang, there were teachers who spoke through firelight and students who listened with open hearts. Long before there were books, there were stories written in the dust, in the stars, in the rhythm of the earth. And long before there were schools, there were